Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, my loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least where makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday, one of my very favorite videos to film every single week. I put so much time and effort into these videos. I try to find the most interesting people that I can to talk about, and this week I think the couple that we're going to talk about is so much fun. It's going to be a really, really great video. It is also going to be a pretty long one, so make sure that you have a cup of something to drink. I have my sweet tea in my little skull and crossbones cup, and make sure that maybe you even have a little bit of a snack. This week's snack is this stuff. So every time my honey goes to a new gas station and finds a cool new little snack, he usually picks it up and brings it home for me. These are moon cheese, and these are so fantastic. What they are is basically freeze-dried little bites of cheese, but they're so delicious. And not only that, but they're pretty good for you as well. They've got 12 grams of protein, and it's got 35% of your daily vitamin C and calcium, your daily calcium in there as well. They're so delicious. This is my favorite flavor. This is the garlic and Parmesan. So delicious. And on top of that, it's a snack you don't really have to feel bad about because it's like cheese. It's not like you're eating on a potato chip. You know what I mean? Anything we got to tell ourselves, right? So for today's eye look, I am going to be using the e.l.f. Game Up palette again. I do not buy into the fact that you can only use one palette one time in one video and like you can never show it never gets to see the light of day again. I spent my good hard-earned money on this and I'm going to use it until I don't want to use it anymore. But on top of that, the last time I used this, though I loved the eye look that I came out with, it did kind of look a little bit like a black eye. So I want to use it and see if I can make that look just a little bit better. I believe I achieved that today. I'm really happy with the way that this eye look turned out. It looks pretty similar, but there are differences there, and I think this one looks a little bit better. I really like the other one too. The other one was so grungy and cool looking. Either way, I've been really happy with this palette so far, so we're going to use this again. I'm also going to use some of the liner and the eyeshadow stick, and then if we have time, y'all know I go at a snail's pace when it comes to these videos because I get so wrapped in telling the story. But if we have time, I do want to try to use this. This is the e.l.f. Halo Glow liquid filter. I want to see if I can use this in a way that's going to look flattering on my skin. I want to mix it with something with a foundation that's got a little bit more coverage and is a little bit more matte. Maybe help that kind of lay a little bit better on my face. This looked so beautiful on the skin, and I think it's going to add a really beautiful glow to any foundation. So I'm excited to use it that way. We're going to go ahead and we're going to dive right into the story. If I'm looking over in this direction, it is because my notes are sitting over there, and I do check my notes just to make sure that I'm not lying to y'all. Y'all know I cannot retain information for anything, so my notes are absolutely imperative. So starting with the story, we're talking about Tristan and Isolde. Tristan and Isolde. This is a super old story. This predates even Sir Lancelot and Queen Guinevere. This story was made popular in around the 12th century, but it predates even that. It's just really old. It's been told time and time again. It's been rewritten so many times. I found so many different versions of this story. Some of the names were different. Some small events have been changed. But I went with the event that I went with the version that I thought was the most interesting and would make the best story. So we're going to start at the very beginning when Tristan was born. So Tristan was born a prince. He was born to royalty. He was born to the king and queen of Lyonesse, King Mel and Queen Isabella. Unfortunately, Queen Isabella died during childbirth, but instead of Tristan's father falling into a depression or ignoring his son, he doted on Tristan. They developed a very strong bond, and Tristan was basically his favorite person. But as time goes on and people grow older, the king did indeed get lonely and ended up remarrying. Unfortunately, he remarried himself to an absolutely evil woman. And she didn't like the bond that he shared with Tristan. She was a very jealous woman and didn't like the fact that so much of his time and affection and attention went towards Tristan. And on top of that, any children she might bear the king wouldn't be able to inherit the throne because Tristan was the heir. So she set about a plan. She started plotting to kill Tristan. Luckily, Tristan had a very, very devoted servant named Niall, who, upon learning of this plot, stole Tristan away in the middle of the night, took him overseas to the French court, to the French kingdom. Now, the French king welcomed Tristan and Niall and granted them sanctuary, and Tristan spent most of his childhood in France. But as Tristan got older, Niall understood and realized that Tristan needed an education as well. And in order for him to get an education, they had to go back to his people. And in order to do this, though he still couldn't take him back to his own kingdom, he did the next best thing. He took Tristan to Cornwall. Now, the king of Cornwall was King Mark. And King Mark not only was the king of Cornwall, but was also Tristan's uncle. Now, Mark opened his doors to Tristan and Niall, welcomed them with open arms, granted them sanctuary, and agreed to educate Tristan in the knightly ways of honor, manners, and battle. And soon, Tristan was unparalleled. He grew quickly, he grew strong, he grew smart, and pretty soon he was unmatched on the battlefield. And this is pretty much where our story starts off. So, work and talk. So, each year, I'm going into this shade right here. So each year, King Mark had to pay tribute to the King and Queen of Ireland. And this was a tribute paid in the form of gold money. And each year, the King and Queen would send their most feared knight to come collect. And his name was Morant. And he was not only was he the most feared and kind of knight in Ireland, but he was also brother to the Queen. So this year, Tristan he's young, he's cocky, he is ready to prove himself, and he wants to become a full knight. So he offers to battle Morant if King Mark will fully knight him. Right, I'm going to prove myself, I'm going to kill this man, but you're going to make me a knight before it happens. And at first, King Mark denied his request. He feared for Tristan's safety. He truly cared for Tristan. That was his nephew. He truly cared for him and didn't want anything. Morant's a big bad guy, right? He doesn't want Tristan to lose, basically. And though Tristan is very, very good at what he does, we all worry for our children. So he says no, but Tristan is very, very persistent, and eventually Mark ends up caving and agrees to it. So he fully knights Tristan, and when Morant shows up to collect the tribute, Tristan challenges him to a duel to the death. Now, this duel goes on for a very long time. They're pretty evenly matched, and at some point, Morant ends up stabbing Tristan through the thigh, and Tristan falls. And Morant tells Tristan that he dips his blade into a poison, and the only person that can heal him is his sister, the Queen, and that will never happen because she'll never agree to heal him. And while Morant is talking and telling him how painful and agonizing his death is going to be, slowly and bit by bit, because this poison will eat him from the inside out, Tristan gathers his strength and chops, he delivers a blow to Morant's head, and in doing so, actually breaks a piece of his sword off into Morant's skull. Now, Morant is barely alive, but the battle is over. Tristan has won, and Morant and his servants and his his company men, they carry him back to Ireland. Now, unfortunately, Morant dies on his way home, and by the time they make it there, he's long since passed. And the queen, remember, Morant is her brother. The queen is beside herself. She is absolutely infuriated. Not only did they not get their tribute, but her brother is dead on top of it. And the queen, like I said, is renowned as a wonderful very, very good healer. And though she can't heal the dead, she does take a minute to perform an autopsy, pretty much like an old school autopsy, on her brother. And she finds the piece of Tristan's sword that was lodged in Morant's skull. She finds it, she examines it closely, and she keeps it. And she holds on to this, and this is going to come back into play much later. But she holds on to that sliver of a sword. So initially, the wound on Tristan's thigh is not bad. He's fine. He can handle it. He's had worse. But he continues to get worse. And as the poison spreads through his blood, it takes him piece by piece. Just like Morant said it was going to do. It whittles away at his vitality and his stamina until he can no longer walk and until he is desperate. So in his desperation to find a cure, he has visited every doctor, every healer, every possible avenue of saving every possible avenue has been exhausted. There's no one in their kingdom that can save him. And at this point, he knows that the only way he's going to be able to survive and the only way to live is by going to the queen and asking her to heal him. He can't do that though, because everybody knows that he's the one that killed her brother. So what he does is he puts on a disguise. He changes his name and he makes the journey to Ireland to ask the queen to heal him. Now seek out the queen, hoping she would heal him. Arriving at the Irish court and knowing she was Morant's sister, he lied about his name. He changed his name from Tristan to Trantis, and she agreed to heal him. Now she used basically she had to purge his system of this poison, so the healing process was not quick. She had to painstakingly seep it from his blood, and she did that by giving him herbal and medicated baths, and then on top of that she gave him herbal potions as well, so he would soak and take these potions, and it did work. He got better. It was a slow process, but he did indeed get better. And during this time, he realized that the king and queen of Ireland had a daughter. Now the princess's name was Isolde, and she was absolutely beautiful. Now toward the end of his healing process, let's say he's about 85-90% healed. Still got that 10% to go. But at this time, the king and queen of Ireland decide to hold a tournament. So knights come from all over to participate. And just like him, the minute these knights set eyes on the princess, they all become infatuated. They're all, pretty much trying to show off for her, right? Hoping that if they can win, they can not only win the purse, but the princess as well. And Tristan gets super jealous. And despite him not being fully healed, and despite him not being in the position to do so, he enters the tournament. And not only does he enter the tournament, but he absolutely decimates the competition. He wins event after event after event, and in the process, the princess notices him as well. So after this, he's won the tournament, he's named champion, and he's also caught the eye of the princess. But in the process of all of these jousts and things like that, his wound reopened, and it was worse than it was before, and he started to bleed profusely. And at this point, Isolde says, oh, I'll take care of him. I'll do it, Mom. She's a healer as well. She's learning from her mother. She has the healing hands just like her mother does. So she says, oh, I'll take care of him. I'll nurse him back to health. And through this process of medicated baths and potions and herbal remedies, the two fall in love. And they fall truly in love. Like, not just an infatuation where he thinks she's beautiful, and not just, you know, oh, he's this big, strong, strapping knight, and I just kind of have a crush. They fall truly, deeply in love with each other. And this is where all of the problems begin. Now, as Tristan is healing and all of his clothing is sent off to be cleaned, and part of his clothing is his armor. So his armor gets sent off, and then with his armor go his weapons. Now, a servant took his weapon to have it get cleaned and noticed that there was a notch taken out of Tristan's sword, and remembered back to when Morant had been delivered and the queen found the sliver in his skull. Something in this servant's brain said, I need to take this to the queen. So that's what he does. He takes Tristan's sword to Queen Isolde, and she examines the sword. And after examining it, she finds that the sliver fits perfectly into Tristan's sword. And then and there, she knows that he's the one. He is not Trantis, like he said he was, but he is none other than Tristan of Cornwall, and he's the one that murdered her brother. So she takes this evidence to the king, and she tells the king, I want him dead. I want him buried. I want the same thing done to him that was done to my brother. Now, the king had grown fond of Tristan over his stay, and also respected him, respected his stamina, respected his prowess on the battlefield. And because of that, decides to spare Tristan. But in doing so, banishes him from Ireland, and he's deemed never to set foot in Ireland again. So he has to leave. Tristan accepts this punishment, because there's no denying that he did do that. So he leaves. He packs his things and he leaves, and he leaves the princess, and is heartbroken. He makes the long journey home, the long trek home, sad and heartbroken, and he's been gone for a good long time. Took a very long time for him to be healed. He was indeed fully healed, but the minute he was healed, he was gone. He was out of there. So he goes back to Cornwall, goes back to his uncle, King Mark. And King Mark is overjoyed to see Tristan. He missed him. He views Tristan as his child, right? And he instantly demands Tristan tell him everything that happened. He's so excited to hear of Tristan's adventures. And Tristan, he wants to talk about it, right? So Tristan sits down and he tells King Mark of his travels. He tells King Mark of King Argius and the Queen Isolde, and tells them that she is an amazing healer, and tells Mark that Argius is a kind man and a fair man, and that he really enjoyed his time there. And then he speaks about the princess, and he speaks about Princess Isolde in the most glowing way. You can tell he's in love. You can tell that this woman really is someone special in order to be spoken about in such a way. And instantly King Mark, he falls in love from nothing but the description, from nothing but the way that Tristan spoke about her. He fell instantly madly in love with her and became infatuated with her. And upon this happening, he asks Tristan for a boon. Now, a boon in the knightly sense is pretty much like a favor, but it is a very serious, solemn thing. A boon is an oath. A boon is something that you swear to do no matter what, and no matter how you have to do it, you swear that you will get it done. And because King Mark is not only his uncle, but also his benefactor, and took him in and raised him, Tristan accepts. Tristan's like, yes, for you I would do anything. Before even hearing what the favor is, Tristan says, yes, of course I will. And then King Mark proceeds to rip Tristan's heart out. He asks Tristan to go back to Ireland, and not only go back to a country that he was banned from, he was banished from, but he wants Tristan to go back and get Isolde, to bring back to Cornwall, to marry Uncle Mark. What kind of man asks his nephew, who is so clearly in love with this woman, asks her, okay, well, you talked about her. She seems so nice. I want you to bring her back here so she can be mine. But that's what he does. And Tristan is broken. He is broken. He is a little, and he's already said yes. So it's not even like he could just say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that, because he's a knight, right? And part of the knight's code of honor is that when you grant someone a boon, you fulfill that promise no matter what it takes, no matter what you have to do. If you agreed to do it, you have to do it. So Tristan says, okay. And he goes upstairs and he changes his armor and he gets on a ship and he sails right back to Ireland. Now, on the way to Ireland, his ship was caught in a storm and they were blown ashore near Camelot. Camelot is, of course, the kingdom of King Arthur. And they were blown ashore near Camelot, so they go to Arthur's court. And when they get there, Arthur is having a tournament. Now, tournaments were all over the place back then, but King Arthur was having a tournament. And at the tournament, all of his knights of the Round Table were there, and they were all competing against each other to see who was champion and to see who was the best. And it just so happens that Tristan's a little mad, and Tristan maybe has a little bit of aggression to get out, so he decides to enter the tournament, and does so, and he wins doesn't dominate, but he does win many of the competitions that he's in, and gets noticed, right? Well, coincidentally, King Argius is at King Arthur's tournament as well. But he's not there to have fun. He's not there to watch the games. He's there because he's being accused of treason. Now, treason back then, just like it is today, it is not something to play around with. It is not a accusation that is made lightly. And he was being wrongly accused of treason by someone who wanted his throne. And unfortunately, the only way to be proven innocent was to win a battle. You had to fight to the death against your accuser. And if you win, you're proven innocent. If you lose, well, too bad. Well, King Argius he's an older gentleman, past his prime, and there's no way he's going to win in a fight. And the person that accused him knew this, and that's what they were hoping for. But Argius had been there for the games, and fortunately watched. And Tristan is still in a different armor. He is disguised because he knows that he's not supposed to be there. So he's disguised. And Argius approaches Tristan after watching him win yet again and asks Tristan to be his champion, and asks Tristan to fight for him against his accuser to restore his honor. And Tristan believed that the king was innocent. And because he believed that the king was innocent, he removed his helmet and exposed his true identity to Argius. And Argius, who again had pardoned him earlier, had spared him, again was like, I still want you to fight for me. I know how amazing you are. If you fight for me and if you win, if you can prove my innocence and save my life and my throne, I will grant you a boon. Now, guys, this is exactly what he needed to happen because he's on a mission, right? So he says, okay, I will fight for you. So Tristan, he fights the accuser, and Tristan is kind of the shiz, so he wins. And after he wins, the king is so pleased and so happy that he takes Tristan back to Ireland with him. and Tristan sees Isolde again, and they're already in love. They fell in love when he was there the first time, and she didn't think that she would ever get to see him again. And when he walks in and she hears the story about what happened and hears that her father granted Tristan a boon, she is absolutely over the moon. She's like, okay, our life is sealed. The fates have aligned. We're gonna finally get to be happy. I know he's gonna use this boon to ask my father for my hand in marriage. She's half right. So as Tristan stood there looking at Isolde, and the king asks Tristan what he would like in return, a piece of him died inside. As he said, I would like Princess Isolde's hand in marriage on behalf of my uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. And Isolde just, she dropped, completely unexpected, right? And what she wants in the matter doesn't matter. What she wants in the whole thing doesn't matter. It's got no bearing on the situation right now. But any chance at happiness for the two of them has just been completely and utterly stolen away. And because the king owes Tristan a boon, he has to accept. Because remember, a boon is something that you can't say no to. So he, of course, accepts Tristan's proposal on behalf of his uncle, and in doing so orders Isolde to go pack, and on top of that orders Isolde's favorite maid, Bren, to pack and go with her to take care of her on the journey. So Isolde is packing all of her things. She's getting ready to embark on the rest of her life, and the queen pulls the maid over, calls her to her chambers. And the queen says to Bren, I know my daughter is still in love with Tristan, and I know that this marriage to the king will make her miserable. So, on my daughter's wedding night, make sure that you take this potion and have both King Mark and Isolde drink it. This potion will make them fall in love and have a happy life together, trying to spare her daughter the complete and utter desolateness of being married to someone she doesn't want to be married to for the rest of her life. So Bren takes the bottle of potion and she packs, and they embark on the journey. They embark on the journey back to Cornwall. Now, on the journey back, it's a long voyage, and it was unseasonably hot, and Tristan and Isolde are on the deck talking and basically just spending time together. And they are parched. And Bren was not the maid, was not a very smart lady, doesn't seem like, because Tristan went out to searched about for something to drink and spotted this bottle of potion. Now, he thought it was wine, and apparently Bren hadn't thought to maybe hide it because it was just laying out right in the middle of the open. So he finds this bottle of potion thinking it's wine. He takes it back to Isolde and they both drink it. Now, and she was right. They did indeed love each other. And this potion did nothing but magnify it times 1,000. So whereas before they were in love, now they were really in love. And there was nothing to be done about it. There was nothing they could do about it. So they continue their voyage, and eventually they reach Cornwall and King Mark. And of course, Tristan has to fulfill his promise. So he delivers Isolde to King Mark, and they very, very quickly get married. Now, their marriage was, Now, their marriage was ended with, she took the splinter days of celebration. Yeah. So, when they returned, Mark married Isolde, and many days of celebration followed. But because of the potion, the love between Tristan and Isolde was so incredibly strong that he couldn't bear. He couldn't bear to watch her get married. He couldn't bear to celebrate. He couldn't bear to be there while the woman that owned his heart and soul was married to another man, let alone his uncle. So he decided to wander the countryside. I'm going into the purple now. He decided to wander the countryside until the celebrations were over. Yeah, in her loneliness and in her desperation, Isolde calls Tristan to her chambers, and King Mark is a jealous man, and basically Isolde is his property at this point, and he doesn't want anybody else messing with his property. So if they want to speak to each other or have any kind of interaction with each other, they have to do so in private. So she calls Tristan to her chambers, and for something truly innocent, she calls Tristan to her chambers so that they can talk and play a game of chess. Now there is a table between them. They haven't touched. They haven't done anything. Tristan is a man of honor. He is a knight and is not going to betray his uncle that way, as much as he might want to. So he agrees. He agrees to come to her chambers, and they literally just sit there and they talk and they play a game of chess. Now, unfortunately, there's always that one guy, that one hater, right? And unfortunately, he happened across the two of them and overheard them in her chambers. And he went back and told the king, and he warped and twisted their words into such a way as to throw the king into a fit of insane jealousy and rage. And the king followed this kind of sneaky night back to her chambers, Isolde's chambers, and looked through the keyhole and saw them, that they were in fact in there together. Didn't matter that they weren't touching, didn't matter that they were legitimately just playing a game of chess. He flew into a jealous fit of rage, and because of that, he ended up banishing Tristan. He banished Tristan from Cornwall and from his kingdom, and Tristan was never to set foot back into Cornwall again. And Tristan left. He left, and it broke both Isolde and Tristan because they would never see each other again. Until finally, and he was gone for a very long time. Flew into a rage, far from his kingdom. Tris left reluctantly, but ended up roaming aimlessly. He had nowhere else to go. He didn't know what to do. He was broken inside and just roamed aimlessly. And no matter where he went or what he did, he always managed to find danger and adventure, and really quickly and pretty soon ended up making quite a name for himself. He became very renowned and very famous for his heroism and his prowess, right? And of course, Isolde, as she's hearing all of this, and she finally breaks down and she writes him a letter. And in this letter, she tells him all of her feelings and how much she loves him, and that even though he's gone, she still thinks of him every day. And she begs Bren, remember Bren, the maid, she begs Bren to find Tristan and deliver this letter. And Bren does. She might not be the smartest maid out there, but she was devoted. And she loved Isolde. So she did. She agreed. And she set out to find Tristan. And she did. She found Tristan at a tournament. And actually, he was in Camelot. She found Tristan in Camelot again. And they're at another tournament held by King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And upon reading Isolde's letter, Tristan rejoiced she still loves him. She still cares about him. She's still thinking about him. And he is so excited. And he begs Bren to stay. He begs Bren to stay until the end of the tournament so he can go back. So she can go back and tell Isolde how great he was, and, you know, basically kind of talk him up a little bit. And she agrees. Bren agrees, and she stays. And of course, Tristan just completely dominates, absolutely dominates the tournament, and does so well, in fact, that Arthur asks Tristan to become a knight of the round table. Of course, Tristan agrees, and Bren is so excited for him. So, and Tristan's like stoked because now Bren gets to go back and tell Isolde that, you know, he's a knight of the round table now. No greater honor. So Bren returns to Cornwall, and she proceeds to tell everyone that will listen how amazing Tristan is, and how Tristan was asked to be a knight of the round table, and how you know, amazing Tristan is. And King Mark is still a very, very jealous man, and upon hearing this, he falls into a depression because he is so jealous. And then on top of that, Isolde, after hearing all of the stories and hearing how amazing Tristan is, she can't help herself anymore, and she blurts out, she admits the fact that she is very much in love with Tristan, and the king can't handle it. He cannot handle it, and a little part of his brain breaks, and he decides he's gonna go kill Tristan. He's gonna gather a posse, and he's gonna go get him. He's gonna go to Camelot. He's gonna kill his nephew. So, without telling anybody what he's up to, without telling anybody what's really going on, he gathers 2 of his bravest and most loyal knights, and says that they're going on a journey. And because he's terrified to leave Isolde alone and, you know, out of his sight, because remember, she's a possession at this point. He doesn't really love her. He's infatuated with her, and she's a pretty thing he wants to own. Not gonna let her out of his sight. So he makes Isolde and Bren pack their bags and come along too. Now, it's a good long way to get there. So as they're going along, they get almost to Camelot. As they near Camelot, they stop and take a break, and the king takes his 2 knights, and he takes them to the side, and then he reveals what they're really doing. He reveals that he needs them to sneak into King Arthur's kingdom, into Camelot, and he wants them to help him kill Tristan. Now, Tristan is a very well-respected man. He is a good man. He's a kind man. And quite frankly, the knights respected Tristan more than they did the king. And they both said no, absolutely not. And on top of that, not only did they decline, but they left the king's service. King Mark, they left his service right then and there. And they decided that they didn't want to be a part of his... They didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. And the king at this point is so caught up in his jealousy, and caught up in the fact that he's got to get rid of this guy, that he stashes Isolde and Bren at a nearby abbey and continues on alone. Now, Bren and Isolde have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea why they're not in Cornwall anymore. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know what Mark is up to. And all they know is that they're bored out of their minds. They're stuck in an abbey, and they need to go do something before they die of boredom. So they decide to go take a walk. And they take a walk through the forest to a nearby fountain. And as they reach the fountain, they stumble upon what is the word for him? They stumble upon a brigand. An evil knight, basically. And this evil knight accosts Isolde. Remember, Isolde is absolutely stunning. She's gorgeous. And men back there were primal. People back then were primal and very brutal. And he decided he liked Isolde and he was going to take her. So he proceeds to jump out from behind a bush after spying on them for who knows how long. He jumps out from behind a bush and ambushes Isolde, and he starts dragging her back to his horse. Well, she screams and she faints, so she's dead weight. And this caper is trying to drag her back to his horse so he can ride off with her. And the entire time, simple Bren is terrified and sitting there screaming her little lungs out. Ha, ha, right? And just so happens that a knight was passing by the abbey and heard the screams. So he comes rushing in. He lowers his joust and charges at this brigand, at this evil knight. And you know, he's an evil knight, not a real knight for a reason. He's a coward. So he drops Isolde and he runs for his horse. But the knight charges after him and ends up toppling him from his horse. So the evil knight is laying on the ground, prone. For all intents and purposes, looking like he's either passed out or dead. So the knight turns his attention back to the ladies and checks to make sure that they're all right. Checks on Isolde because she's still lying on the ground, fainted. And the knight pops up and he jumps on his horse and he rides off. So he got away. But as this happens, after the evil knight is gone, the knight in shining armor proceeds to take off his helmet, and it is none other than Tristan. It is Tristan who has come to save the day. It is Tristan who has just saved Isolde's life, and they are both overjoyed. They haven't seen each other in such a long time, and to see each other now in this circumstance, it is everything. And they spend the next 3 days living their fantasy, living in an Eden of their own making, enjoying each other, enjoying each other's company, and I'm pretty sure enjoying each other completely and fully for the first time. And they know that this is probably going to be the very last time that they see each other, so they make the very most of it that they can. They spend 3 days at the abbey with each other, and at the end of the 3rd day, they leave and they head back to Camelot to return Isolde to her husband. Now, during this 3-day period, what's been going on with King Mark? Well, serves him right, honestly. So once King Mark got to Camelot, he was in for a mighty surprise, because the 2 knights that he had brought with him and left his service, they reported him. They went straight to Camelot and they told King Arthur, because they knew that Tristan was part of King Arthur's round table. They went straight to King Arthur and told King Arthur everything that the king was planning and why. And as soon as King Mel entered Camelot, he was arrested. He was detained, arrested, and put into prison. And they waited for Tristan to return to let him know what was going on. Now, because King Mark hadn't actually acted upon his plot, because King Mel hadn't acted on the plot and hadn't actually touched Tristan, King Arthur didn't punish him. But what he did do was make King Mark apologize in front of the entire court. He made King Mark get down on his knees, and apologize to Tristan, and admit what he was going to do. And then not only that, he made King Arthur made Mark promise never to come after Tristan again, or anything of that nature. And at the end of it, he allowed King Mark to go back to Cornwall, and with him he took Isolde. And again, Tristan died inside. I'm sure she did too, but they've just experienced 3 days together. They've just experienced probably the happiest time of his life, in all honesty. And he knows that. He knows that he's just experienced the happiest days of his life, and there is no hope of him ever finding happiness with her. And he just kind of lost his will to be there. He wanted to remove himself from any and all temptation. And he pretty much figured, you know, maybe if I can get far enough away, maybe I can stop thinking about her. Maybe if I can get far enough away, she won't rule my every waking thought. So that's what he does. He gets on a ship and he sails away. And Mark's Knights have reported the plot. Yeah. So he gets on a ship and he feels hopeless and alone. And he crosses the sea to Brittany. And Brittany is in the midst of a war, right? They're battling enemy after enemy after enemy, and they're not doing very well. They're actually doing really, really bad. They're on the very edge of defeat. And Tristan knows that he can help, right? Tristan is great in battle. He knows that if there's anything he's good at, it's fighting. So he goes to Brittany and he offers to lead the, how do I say that? He offers to lead the army, their army, against their enemies. And the Breons. He offers to lead the Breons in battle. With his courage and his inspirational leadership. Not only that, but his might and his pure determination and strength of will. He manages to win the battle. He manages to rally the Brionian army, and they end up winning. And at this point, the king, the king of Brittany, is overjoyed because he thought it was done for. He thought they were goners, that his kingdom was lost. And in comes Tristan, again a knight in shining armor, and saves the day. He saves his kingdom, saves his throne and his people, and the king is overjoyed. And because of this, he brings Tristan back to his home, back to his court and his castle, and introduces him to his daughter. Now his daughter's name, can you guess? Of course, is Isolde. And now Isolde, his true love, was known as Isolde the Fair. Now the king of Brittany, his daughter, was known as Isolde of the White Hands. And she too was a healer. And he offered his daughter to Tristan. He offered his daughter's hand to Tristan in marriage. And Tristan was torn because on one hand, he knows that he'll never love another the way that he loved Isolde. But he also knows that this might be his only chance. This might be his only chance to fill the void in his heart where his love for Isolde the Fair had been. And after much deliberation, he finally decides to accept her hand in marriage, and he marries her. And it was like the fates had aligned, and the clouds parted and the sun shone, even if just for a moment. And he spent many months in happiness. Maybe not bliss, maybe not perfect happiness, but he spent many months happy with his new bride, and indeed did fall in love with her. She was kind and she was good, and she doted on him and catered to him, and he found a small piece of happiness. But even in times of happiness, the world turns, and Brittany is in peril yet again. They're being threatened yet again by another enemy. And so Tristan again has to rally the troops. He has to lead the charge. And he leads the army once again into battle. And under his leadership, they were able to beat the enemy back to their very last stronghold. And at the very last battle, Tristan, the battle is almost won. They're almost there. They're about to burst the door downs, And from out of nowhere comes a flying rock. Now, there were people up on the top of the towers hurling big boulders at the soldiers below, trying to keep them out. And Tristan was struck in the head by one of these flying rocks, and it fell him. He fell to his knees, and he passed out. And it was a mighty blow. It was enough to take him off of his feet. Well, luckily the battle was pretty much already won. And after the enemy was defeated, they carried Tristan back to his wife. And his wife nursed him back to health. Now, again, she was a healer. She knew what she was doing. And she allowed no one else to touch Tristan but herself. And she nursed him back to health slowly but surely. Or was trying to anyway. Nursed him back to health very slowly but surely. And during these times where during these times when she's trying to heal him, and her loving hands under her tender touch and loving kisses, he started to return to health, and he started to get better, and he fell even more in love with his wife, truly in love with her, like really was genuine, true affection there. Maybe she wasn't the absolute love of his life, and never would be, but there was love there. He genuinely cared for her, and they could have spent the rest of their life very, very happy. But unfortunately, the old poison. Remember in the beginning of the story when Tristan was stuck in the leg by the poisoned sword? Well, after his body has tried to heal itself, the poison rose back up, and it came back with a vengeance, and Tristan couldn't fight it. There was Isolde of the White Hands tried everything. She tried everything to make him better, and nothing was working. It had a grip on him that no potion, no concoction, no herbal remedy she could think of could fix. And Tristan was dying. And out of desperation, Tristan asked Isolde of the White Hands to send for Isolde the Fair. Now he remembered that when he was struck with the poison the first time, that she was the only one that was able to heal him, and he knew that she was his only chance of surviving. So he begged his wife, please send for her. She is my only chance. She's the only chance we have at a life together. Send for her so that I may live. And the queen agrees. She agrees. She sends her best sailors, her best navymen, and her fastest ship to go fetch Isolde and to come and heal Tristan. And before they left, he told the captain that if, on his way back, if she agreed to come and heal him, he asked them to fly white sails. But if she denied his request and decided that she didn't want to come and that she no longer cared, he said to raise black sails so that he would know his life was finished. And then on top of this, he also sent his ring. He gave his ring to the captain and said to give it to Isolde, and that by that ring she would know him, and she would know that he needed her. So they leave. They go and they set sail, and the minute they wash ashore on Cornwall, they hightail it up to the castle, and they're greeted, they go straight to Isolde, and they tell her what's happening, and without a hesitation, without a question, she says yes. She doesn't even stop to pack a bag. She runs to the ship in there, and they set sail, and they fly back to Tristan, and they fly the white sails. Now, Tristan, in his desperation to survive and to see if Isolde was going to come and save him, he had set a little servant girl out to the cliffs to watch for the sails. And he said, watch for black or watch for white, but either way, Tell me when you see them. And on the horizon, lo and behold, there she sees big, white, beautiful sails, sailing towards them. And she runs back to the castle. Oh, this part makes me mad. She runs back to the castle, but she's intercepted by Isolde of the White Hands. And she tells Isolde what she saw. And she says that the white sails are coming. He's saved. Everything's going to be fine. And she orders the servant girl to tell Tristan that the sails were black. And apparently she had known. She had known about Tristan and Isolde the Fair's previous history. And she knew that Isolde was Tristan's true love. And she was so fearful for her happiness, so fearful of the fact that she might lose a dying man, that she told the servant girl to go tell Tristan that the sails were black and that Isolde had refused his request. And Tristan was just holding on. He was just holding on just long enough, just while there was hope. Okay? Hope was the only thing keeping him here. And she stole it from him. So the little servant girl goes and tells Tristan that the sails are black, and Tristan says, sails lied and died. So it seems, we will never see each other again. Goodbye, my love. Goodbye. And with that, those were his last words. He took his last breath and he died right there on the spot. Before they could even reach shore, he was dead. And the minute that the queen knew that this had happened, not the queen, but Isolde of the White Hands sent the servant girl down to the shore to tell Isolde, the minute she got off the boat, that Tristan was dead. Petty as the day is long, and for what reason I will never understand. So now she can be miserable alone and have a good man die for no reason. And so the minute that Isolde hears that Tristan has died, she begs to be taken to see his body. And she's allowed. Isolde of the White Hands no longer has anything to fear. She's no longer got anything to lose. So she lets Isolde see Tristan. And she lays down next to Tristan. And she dies. She loses the will to live, and she dies as well. She takes her last breath, lays down beside him, and that was the end of their love. And I think it is completely and utterly tragic, but the story's not over yet. So, before Tristan had died, he had basically written a will. And his last testament, his last request, had been that he be taken back to Cornwall and be buried in Cornwall with his family, with his uncle. And he also wrote his uncle a letter. And in this letter, he explained to his uncle about the potion, and explained to his uncle that he never wanted to make his uncle look like a fool, and he never wanted to hurt his uncle. That's why he left. And his uncle felt such regret. He felt such profound regret in that moment of all of the jealousy and all of the horrible, terrible things that he had thought of Tristan and the way that he had treated Isolde, that he ordered Tristan to be returned to Cornwall. And he buried Tristan and Isolde together in his own private chapel. And that is where they were buried, right next to each other, and that is where they remain. But not very long after they were both buried, a vine grew from Tristan's grave, snaked its way all the way over to Isolde's grave, and grew into her grave. And no matter how many times the vine was cut, no matter how many times it was pruned or torn to pieces, no matter if it rained or snowed or if it flooded or if the sun went away for months, it wouldn't die. And it remains to this day the most beautiful verdant green vine that stretches from Tristan's grave 2 Isoldes. Ugh, that's the end of the story. I am so in love with it. I think it's fantastic. It is such a beautiful story. Tragic, but beautiful, and so romantic, don't you think? Guys, let me know what you thought of this week's story. It is one of my absolute favorites I've told so far. This is the eye look that we were able to come up with. I think it is absolutely stunning. Super, super easy to do as well. I think this palette is phenomenal. Chef's kiss. Really, really enjoy it. I'm going to add a little bit of liner. I will, of course, be posting finished pics over on my other socials. The links for those will be in the description box below, along with a list of everything I used in today's video. So if you guys are curious, make sure you check out the description box. And as always, no filters, no edits, no fancy lighting. It's just me sitting in front of my camera, playing with some makeup, telling you guys a love story, hoping that y'all are enjoying what I'm doing. Until next time, my beautiful loverlies, I love you so very much. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.